Have you ever felt that self-esteem was highly elusive? That sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't, that it's lowered, and it doesn't really depend on how much you know, because you can feel that you really know a lot about a subject but still feel a low self-esteem. Well, in this video, what I want to share with you are some very non-intuitive and uncommon advice on how to build your self-esteem. Right? So at the end of this video, you're going to have a completely different way of thinking about self-esteem, establishing it and improving it for yourself that's going to last and stand the test of time. Right, so first, let's begin with some distinctions when it comes to esteem. What does that mean anyway? Because a lot of people confuse self-esteem with confidence, and they're not the same thing. So esteem is really, the essence of it is really respect and admiration of worth. When you respect somebody for who they are, and you really admire them because you genuinely see their worth, what they bring, the value that they have behind them. And keep in mind that esteem can be either outwards or inwards, right? So when it's outwards, let's say, for example, if esteem is outward, then you are placing someone on high regard, highly respectful of them, right? You genuinely see that they have great worth. Then in that case, esteem is outward, and that person becomes an esteemed individual. Like, you must have heard this before. They are an esteemed professional, or they're an esteemed speaker. So that in those instances, esteem is outward. But let's make no mistake about it, esteem can go the other way. It can go inward as well. So when it's inward, that's what we call self-esteem. When it's outward, we label that individual as an esteemed professional or an esteemed fill in the blank what their title is. So in this video, we're focusing on self-esteem, when the esteem is reflected inward. So the essence of self-esteem, like I just got done sharing with you the distinction of esteem, and that's very different from confidence, by the way, but the essence of self-esteem is that our self-esteem, the esteem we have of ourselves, is nothing more than an opinion we have about ourselves, right? Because the same thing is true outward. We have an opinion towards another person, and we see them as high worth. We see them as valuable. We see them as great, right? And our opinion of them allows us to see them as an esteemed person. The same thing is true, reflection on inward. When we have a high opinion of ourselves, self-respect, when we have a high opinion of ourselves, that we see our worth, we have a high regard or respect for it, then our self-esteem goes up. We have a high self-esteem. So this is where, for example, there have been cases, if you reflect on it, there have been instances, situations in your life where you build yourself up. And in those instances, chances are, reflect upon this, don't just take my word on it, reflect upon this, chances are when your self-esteem was high, you are conscious of the things you like about yourself. You're very conscious of it, and you can feel overly proud of yourself. Maybe in those instances when we are proud of ourselves, oftentimes it's quite easy to look down on others or look down on certain individuals when we perceive that we have something that is better than, or something that is more efficient than, or something that is more intelligent than. Then oftentimes when we see an individual who does not portray those, then even on a subconscious level, we look down on them. We don't respect those individuals. And this is where we hold ourselves with high regards. We have a high opinion of ourselves. So that's when, if someone comes into our life and they don't exhibit those traits, they don't exhibit those things we like about ourselves, then we have this resistance, right? It could be, for example, we don't feel like we want to collaborate with them. We don't feel like they would make a good team member. We don't feel like we would want them to be a part of it because they might bring down the efficiency or bring down some productivity, right? So that is the opinion we have of ourselves when our self-esteem is high. And the reverse of that, when we have a low opinion of ourselves, this is where our self-esteem goes down. So this is the opposite. And this is when we're more conscious of the things we don't like about ourselves. And we're more conscious of the things that we wish we could change, or that we wish we could improve upon, because we are highly attentive to the things that we don't like, we don't embrace, and that we wish to improve or to change. And in that regard, when we are introduced to other individuals who do portray those characteristics, who do have those traits that we like or that we would rather have, then we hold them in higher regard with respect to ourselves. And we hold them at an elevated state. We have a greater opinion on that individual than we have of ourselves. And this causes our self-esteem to be deflated, or lowered self-esteem. And that causes us to admire others who have the traits that we wish we would have, but we don't see it at the moment. And so therefore, in the presence of those individuals that we hold in higher regard, we see them as more esteemed, and that's what causes us to be intimidated by those individuals. And over the course of time, you'll notice this, that your self-esteem is constantly oscillating up and down. It's going up and down. It's constantly in this escalation and deflation. Escalate and deflate. You'll notice this and reflect on it. Don't take my word for it. Once again, reflect in your life and you will see this to be true. That your self-esteem is in a constant ebb and flow, up and down, oscillating. And it could even be in the course of a single day. In one single day, in the morning something happens or something comes to our attention, we have an elevated self-esteem. By the lunchtime and afternoon, something else happens or something else gets introduced to us and we have a lowered self-esteem. It could even be the course of a single hour. And as an executive coach, this is the nature of self-esteem. This is the nature of it, that constant oscillation. So doesn't it stand to reason that if that is the nature of self-esteem, if you are chasing self-esteem, this is the experience you will get. Expect it. If you are chasing it, if you are seeking to improve it, build self-esteem, then this is the experience you will get, that constant oscillation between elevated self-esteem and lowered self-esteem, because our opinion of ourselves is changing with respects to others or with respects to our observations and so on. So therefore, because our self-esteem is in constant oscillation, it's not sustainable, right? And I'll prove it to you because it's, reflect on it. Don't take my word for it, but reflect upon this. It's not sustainable to always have a positive opinion of yourself. And in that heightened self-esteem to look down on certain individuals, that's not sustainable. Because how many of you have noticed that you don't tend to last when you have a heightened opinion of yourself? It doesn't tend to last. And at some point, it becomes oscillated or go the other direction. But the other case is not true as well. It's also unsustainable. It's not sustainable to always have a negative opinion of yourself while looking up at certain people. That's not sustainable either. And the reason why, the essence of why that's unsustainable, because that is not your true authentic self. To see yourself in a negative light or to see yourself in a positive light, to have those extremes. And by the way, it's on a spectrum. You can be quite extreme on the negative where you see a lot greater things that cause you to have a negative opinion of yourself. It could be quite extreme on the other side. And you can go swing the other way quite extreme as well, where you have a high opinion on yourself. And that holds you in high regard, right? So those extremes and everything in between, the spectrum is in between. But anytime you have those swings of left side, right side, negative or positive side, that's not your authentic self, and therefore it is not sustainable. Right? And by the way, what I'm saying to you is resonating and you're reflecting on your life and you are seeing the truths in this, the insight and the thought behind what I'm sharing, then I want you to give me a thumbs up because I want to know that you're here and you're listening. So take notes on this. And by the way, if you enjoy this topic, give me a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to my channel as well. Ring that bell because I always release videos every single week on topics like this and so much more. Right? So continue on that vein. This is not your authentic self, and that's why it's unsustainable. When we are inauthentic to ourselves, and we take those extreme points of views, when you have an elevated self-esteem and you're more conscious of the things you like about yourself, right? There is a tendency to put on different personas to try to remain elevated, right? Reflect on it. In those moments where you had a high opinion of yourself, right? It feels good. You feel like you're on track. You have greater energy. It just feels great to have an elevated self-esteem. Then what happens is that we try hard to prolong that experience. We try hard to remain elevated. And so that causes us to wear different masks, try on different personas, whatever we can to maintain that position. And the opposite is also true. When you have a deflated self-esteem, and you're more conscious of the things you don't like about yourself, there is a similar tendency to wear masks and to have different personas to protect ourselves. And what are we protecting ourselves from? Well, we want to protect ourselves from judgment. We want to avoid judgment for other people, or we want to avoid being exposed because there's that imposter behind us. Right? So there, both ways, either way, elevated self-esteem or lowered self-esteem, there is a tendency to want to avoid that which we don't want, the judgment, the exposure, and try to keep seeking prolongment of what we do desire. And in those cases, we're trying to avoid that which is unsustainable. We're trying to seek that which is perpetually unsustainable, and that just creates a futile situation. So here's what I'll say about that. You might be thinking by now, well, I thought this video was all about how to build your self-esteem. What do I do now? Instead of trying to build self-esteem, focus on self-worth. Build self-worth instead of self-esteem. Right? So write that down. I am not going to focus on self-esteem anymore. If you are serious about genuinely having that confidence, if you are serious about genuinely creating a life of empowerment for yourself in your career, in your relationships, and all aspects of life, then make a commitment to yourself that from this day forward, you will no longer focus on building self-esteem. Because that you understand now, from what you heard earlier, the nature of self-esteem, the oscillating nature of it. And being caught up in that and trying to pursue things that are unattainable, that constant elevation, or try to avoid things that are unavoidable, that avoiding judgment from others or avoiding that exposure of discovering who you are, then that is unsustainable. So what happens when you pursue self-worth? Instead, pursue self-worth, because self-worth is the state in which you are absolutely aware, you are conscious of both sides of yourself. The things you like and dislike about yourself. You are conscious of both of it, of all of it. And you are appreciative of what is. You are genuinely, from your authentic self, grateful for what is. And so therefore, you can stop trying to get rid of the parts you don't like, or you can stop trying to accentuate the parts that you do like, because the authentic you has both. It is not possible to get rid of part of yourself or half of yourself, because chances are there's half things that you don't like about yourself and half of the things that you do. But if you try to get rid of the things that you don't like, it is also unattainable, because you are a whole person. So pursue self-worth instead of self-esteem, because the premise of self-esteem, a consistently elevated self-esteem, requires you to get rid of the things you don't like or avoid them in some way, and to exaggerate or keep focusing on or improving upon the things that you do like. But that is not a whole individual, an authentic self. So focus on self-worth instead of self-esteem, and that is in a space that is sustainable, it is long-lasting, and it will give you the inspiration and the gratefulness through it all. And by the way, if you are wondering then, well, how then do I show up? Right? I'm in a workplace right now, I have meetings with higher ups, I have meetings with executives, and I want to know, how do I exercise my self-worth so that I can genuinely be present in these meetings with people or stakeholders and executives? Well, if you want to develop that executive presence, which follows through from elevating, right, from focusing on self-worth, then I have another video that I created recently to help you develop that executive presence. Right, so just follow along. Right after this video will be that one, how to develop executive presence. So watch that following right up, and I'll see you there.